This is Dr. Qamar Cheema, and please do subscribe my new YouTube channel, The New Word with Dr. Cheema. And today's discussion is very interesting as I'm going to talk about the tripolar world and the rise of the neutral powers. Recently, you have noticed that since this Russian aggression on Ukraine and this unjust war, we have seen the new geopolitical development, and this new geopolitical development has basically divided the world into three areas. According to the Economist Intelligence Unit, a report was published where it was said that 36% of the world population, normally the Western democracies, they are against the aggression against Russia, whereas 64% of the world's people who are living, they are either neutral on this conflict in Ukraine, or they have given their understanding that they support Russia. So, for instance, there are 32% of the global population, which is India, Brazil, South Africa, and the others. They have stood with the Russians, whereas they have remained neutral. Whereas there is a pro-Russian camp as well, which has China and Iran on their side. And meanwhile, the development which I want to share with you is that if India is a neutral in this entire game, but at the same time, India is resumed free trade talks with the European Union, and the talks have started after 1 decade. So that shows that how India and European Union, or how the Western democracies believe that we need to have a good contact with India. uh, the European Union is the second largest trading partner with India after the US, and the merchandise trade between India and EU is somewhere $116 billion, whereas this increased by 43% this last financial year. So the last time the talks between India and EU, European Union, they were conducted, or they were happening from 2007 to 2013. But after Prime Minister Modi came in power, all those talks were stopped for that moment. But now in 2023, those talks have started, and there is a likely possibility that these talks are going to be successful and to be concluded in next year, in 2023. So this is where I think in international politics a new change is coming. The European Union and the Western countries, they believe that okay, India is supporting, or India is siding with the Russians, with the Russians, but we need India in the future. So, for instance, if you will just look at this tripolar world, you will find that the Turkey is also a very major player among those neutral powers in international politics. We call them countries like Turkey, or countries like India or Saudi Arabia. We call them as a semi-periphery, because they are politically independent. They don't get into the security alliances. They are financially independent, and they are in a good position to engage with the world. So, if you will just look at that, how these countries, they have established their autonomy. For instance, these neutral nations, they do not rely on security alliance with any leading global power. So when it comes to the Quad, the Indians didn't let the Quad to have a military component, and that's why the Americans and the British and the Australians, they went for the AUKUS. So this military, the autonomy on defense side, and autonomy, the financial autonomy, has given basically an access to these countries to be more independent in the foreign policy. So Turkey again is another semi-periphery, another neutral country which has basically a brokered a peace basically between Russia and Ukraine on the blockade of the Black Sea. And remember, the Turkey and India, those countries which are also getting benefit from Russia for getting the crude oil, and as you know that the Indians have increased the import of the crude oil from Russia. Back in February, India was importing just 1% of the crude oil, and now it has increased to 18% of the crude oil which India is importing. So, what is important to understand that the Russians and the Chinese, they are in such a position, and the 64% of the global population, which is either with the Russia or China, or they have remained neutral, is basically the success of the Russia and China. and that is what is important. For instance, if you will just look, the Russians have exported, according to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, they have exported around $11 billion of weapons from 2000 to 2020 into the Southeast Asian countries like Malaysia, Vietnam, and Indonesia. And the Russian has basically empowered these militaries. So, and on the other hand, if you just look at the Western parts in the Western countries, whenever they give weapons, they keep certain they try to keep a check on other countries, or something is some they want to achieve something from those countries in return, if they want to give military arsenals or the military weapons to those countries. So I think what matters is that this tripolar world order is there, and I think the Western world has not been able enough or successful enough to win over the 64% of the population, which is basically a trend which is very much there. And the people in the developing world, they are just looking the behaviors of Turkey, and then South Africa and Brazil and India, and then to some extent, even if you just look, even the Saudi Arabia and UAE and all these countries, they are in a different position. Even the Israelis were very much active in terms of having some sort of a tools, and even Indonesia, which is very much important in terms of there is a likely possibility for any breakthrough, which the Indonesians can play a role. On the other hand, I think the G7, the G20 summit is going to be held there this month, in I think in a couple of days. So it seems that on one hand, this tripolar world order is in shape, uh, and at the same time, the autonomy, neutrality, and the semi-peripheries, they're looking the international system very carefully, and they believe that there's this political, economic, and military autonomy is going to help them, or going to make them have independent foreign policy choices, and at the end of the day, they can take decisions which are good for their own people. So this that is why these talks between India and EU, they are on the path, and despite the fact that India is not supporting the Western pass, but the European Union thought that we should engage with India, and that is because much of the weapons is going from European Union to India, and they believe that India is a country which can buy weapons, and at the same time, Indians want that they should not be seen from the lens of from 80s or 90s, because that time is gone. So this is what India is trying to make sure. So there was a recent study that was done by the European Parliamentary Research Service, where they said that, and that study was conducted in June 2020, and that is why the European Union have pushed India for free trade talks. And the study, as per the European Parliamentary Research Service, says that if there is a free trade agreement between both the countries, they are going to be win-win situation. But the exports from European Union to India would increase by 52 to 56%, and the imports from India will rise from 33 to 35% if this free trade agreement is at place, and if there is a potential for that. So, and since the Europeans were asking for the liberalization of the trade, they were asking for that. This liberalization is necessary, and if India liberalizes trade, that is going to be very much beneficial for them. So in reality, what seems is that Indians have looked things from their lens, and they want that they should be given priority, or they should be looked from their own lens. So it is a very interesting development of this tripolar world order. What you can see and what is on the cards, and at the end of the day, if there is a G7 summit and Indonesia and India is called in that G7 summit, it makes the case that the world believes, that the Western worlds and the Western democracies believe that we need India on their side, because if we will give them more military incentives, more we will accommodate them politically, and we will give them more economic incentives. But in my understanding, whatever incentives the Western world will give to India, They are not going to change the side. They will stay there neutral because they believe the time has not come to take any side. So they want to decide their own terms and condition for the region, and they want to stay neutral, and that neutrality will not go, because and it will take decades for if the Western democracies want this neutrality to go. But there is an interesting trend that, despite India's neutrality, the European Union is signing a free trade agreement, and they see that there is a lot of opportunity, even if the Indians are not supporting them on Ukraine. Thank you very much.